Chapter 5, Via's Secret. A couple of days after spring break ended, Mom found out that Via hadn't told her about a school play that was happening at her high school the next week, and Mom was mad. Mom doesn't really get mad that much, though Dad would disagree with that, but she was really mad at Via for that. She and Via got into a huge fight. I could hear them yelling at each other in Via's room. My bionic Lobot ears could hear Mom saying, "But what is with you lately, Via? You're moody and taciturn and secretive." "What is so wrong with my not telling you about a stupid play?" Via practically screamed. "I don't even have a speaking part in it." "Your boyfriend does. Don't you want us to see him in it?" "No, actually I don't. Stop screaming." "You screamed first. Just leave me alone, okay? You've been really good about leaving me alone my whole life, so why you choose high school to suddenly be interested, I have no idea." Then, I don't know what Mom answered, because it all got very quiet, and even my bionic Lobot ears couldn't pick up a signal. Chapter 6, My Cave. By dinner, they seemed to have made up. Dad was working late. Daisy was sleeping. She'd thrown up a lot earlier in the day, and Mom made an appointment to take her to the vet the next morning. The three of us were sitting down, and no one was talking. Finally, I said, "So are we going to see Justin in a play?" Via didn't answer, but looked down at her plate. "You know, Augie," said Mom quietly, "I hadn't realized what play it was, and it really isn't something that would be interesting to kids your age." "So I'm not invited?" I said, looking at Via. "I didn't say that," said Mom. I don't think it's something you'd enjoy." "You'd get totally bored," said Via, like she was accusing me of something. "Are you and Dad going?" I asked. "Dad'll go," said Mom. "I'll stay home with you." "What?" Via yelled at Mom. "Oh, great. So you're going to punish me for being honest by not going." "You didn't want us to go in the first place, remember?" answered Mom. "But now that you know about it, of course, I want you to go," said Via. "Well, I've got to weigh everyone's feelings here, Via," said Mom. "What are you two talking about?" I shouted. "Nothing," they both snapped at the same time. "Just something about Via's school that has nothing to do with you," said Mom. "You're lying," I said. "Excuse me?" said Mom, kind of shocked. Even Via looked surprised. "I said you're lying," I shouted. "You're lying." I screamed at Via, getting up. "You're both liars. You're both lying to my face like I'm an idiot." "Sit down, Augie," said Mom, grabbing my arm. I pulled my arm away and pointed at Via. "You think I don't know what's going on?" I yelled. "You just don't want your brand new fancy high school friends to know your brother's a freak." "Augie," Mom yelled, "that is not true." "Stop lying to me, Mom," I shrieked. "Stop treating me like a baby. I'm not retarded. I know what's going on." I ran down the hallway to my room and slammed the door behind me so hard that I actually heard little pieces of the wall crumble inside the door frame. Then I plopped onto my bed and pulled the covers up on top of me. I threw my pillows over my disgusting face and then piled all my stuffed animals on top of the pillows, like I was inside a little cave. If I could walk around with a pillow over my face all the time, I would. I don't even know how I got so mad. I wasn't really mad at the beginning of dinner. I wasn't even sad. But then all of a sudden it all kind of just exploded out of me. I knew Via didn't want me to go to her stupid play, and I knew why. I figured Mom would follow me into my room right away, but she didn't. I wanted her to find me inside of my cave of stuffed animals, so I waited a little more. But even after 10 minutes, she still didn't come in after me. I was pretty surprised. She always checks on me when I'm in my room, upset about stuff. I pictured Mom and Via talking about me in the kitchen. I figured Via was feeling really, really, really bad. I pictured Mom totally laying on the guilt, and Dad would be mad at her when he came home too. I made a little hole through the pile of pillows and stuffed animals and peeked at the clock on my wall. Half an hour had passed and Mom still hadn't come into my room. I tried to listen for the sounds in the other rooms. Were they still having dinner? What was going on? Finally, the door opened. It was Via. She didn't even bother coming over to my bed, and she didn't come in softly like I thought she would. She came in quickly. Chapter 7, Goodbye. Augie, said Via, come quick. Mom needs to talk to you. I'm not apologizing. This isn't about you, she yelled. Not everything in the world is about you, Augie. Now hurry up. Daisy's sick. Mom's taking her to the emergency vet. Come say goodbye. I pushed the pillows off my face and looked up at her. That's when I saw she was crying. What do you mean, goodbye? Come on, she said, holding out her hand. I took her hand and followed her down the hall to the kitchen. Daisy was lying down sideways on the floor with her legs straight out in front of her. She was panting a lot, like she'd been running in the park. Mom was kneeling beside her, stroking the top of her head. What happened, I asked. She just started whimpering all of a sudden, said Via, kneeling down next to Mom. I looked down at Mom, who was crying too. I'm taking her to the animal hospital downtown, she said. The taxi's coming to pick me up. The vet'll make her better, right? I said. Mom looked at me. I hope so, honey, she said quietly, but I honestly don't know. Of course he will, I said. Daisy's been sick a lot lately, Augie, and she's old. But they can fix her, I said, looking at Via to agree with me. But Via wouldn't look up at me. Mom's lips were trembling. I think it might be time we say goodbye to Daisy, Augie. I'm sorry. No, I said. We don't want her to suffer, Augie, she said. The phone rang. Via picked it up, said, okay, thanks, and then hung up. The taxi's outside, she said, wiping her tears with the backs of her hands. Okay, Augie, open the door for me, sweetie, said Mom, picking Daisy up very gently, like she was a huge, droopy baby. Please, no, Mommy, I cried, putting myself in front of the door. Honey, please, said Mom, she's very heavy. What about Daddy? I cried. He's meeting me at the hospital, Mom said. He doesn't want Daisy to suffer, Augie. Via moved me away from the door and held it open for Mom. My cell phone's on if you need anything, Mom said to Via. Can you cover her with the blanket? Via nodded, but she was crying hysterically now. Say goodbye to Daisy, kids, Mom said, tears streaming down her face. I love you, Daisy, Via said, kissing Daisy on the nose. I love you so much. Bye, little girlie, I whispered into Daisy's ear. I love you. Mom carried Daisy down the stoop. The taxi driver had opened the back door and we watched her get in. Just before she closed the door, Mom looked up at us standing by the entrance to the building and she gave us a little wave. I don't think I've ever seen her look sadder. I love you, Mommy, said Via. I love you, Mommy, I said. I'm sorry, Mommy. Mom blew a kiss to us and closed the door. We watched the car leave and then Via closed the door. She looked at me a second and then she hugged me very, very tight while we both cried a million tears. Chapter 8, Daisy's Toys. Justin came over about half an hour later. He gave me a big hug and said, sorry, Augie. We all sat down in the living room, not saying anything. For some reason, Via and I had taken all of Daisy's toys from around the house and had put them in a little pile on the coffee table. Now we just stared at the pile. She really is the greatest dog in the world, said Via. I know, said Justin, rubbing Via's back. She just started whimpering, like all of a sudden, I said. Via nodded. Like 2 seconds after you left the table, she said. Mom was going to go after you, but Daisy just started, like, whimpering. Like how, I said. Just whimpering, I don't know, said Via. Like howling, I asked. Augie, like whimpering, she answered impatiently. She just started moaning like something was really hurting her, and she was panting like crazy. Then she just kind of plopped down, and Mom went over and tried to pick her up. And whatever, she was obviously hurting. She bit Mom. What? I said. When Mom tried to touch her stomach, Daisy bit her hand, Via explained. Daisy never bites anybody, I answered. She wasn't herself, said Justin. She was obviously in pain. Daddy was right, said Via. We shouldn't have let her get this bad. What do you mean, I said. He knew she was sick? Augie, Mom's taken her to the vet like 3 times in the last 2 months. She's been throwing up left and right. Haven't you noticed? But I didn't know she was sick. Via didn't say anything, but she put her arm around my shoulders and pulled me closer to her. I started to cry again. I'm sorry, Augie, she said softly. I'm really sorry about everything, okay? You forgive me? You know how much I love you, right? I nodded. Somehow that fight didn't matter much now. Was Mommy bleeding? I asked. It was just a nip, said Via. Right there. She pointed to the bottom of her thumb to show me exactly where Daisy had bitten Mom. Did it hurt her? Mommy's okay, Augie. She's fine. Mom and Dad came home 2 hours later. We knew the second they opened the door and Daisy wasn't with them that Daisy was gone. We all sat down in the living room around the pile of Daisy's toys. Dad told us what happened at the animal hospital, how the vet took Daisy for some x-rays and blood tests, and then came back and told them she had a huge mass in her stomach. She was having trouble breathing. Mom and Dad didn't want her to suffer. So Daddy picked her up in his arms like he always liked to do, with her legs straight up in the air, and he and Mom kissed her goodbye over and over again and whispered to her while the vet put a needle in her leg. And then after about a minute, she died in Daddy's arms. It was so peaceful, Daddy said. She wasn't in any pain at all, like she was just going to sleep. A couple of times while he talked, Dad's voice got trembly and he cleared his throat. I've never seen Dad cry before, but I saw him cry tonight. I had just gone into Mom and Dad's bedroom looking for Mom to put me to bed, but saw Dad sitting on the edge of the bed taking off his socks. His back was to the door, so he didn't know I was there. At first I thought he was laughing because his shoulders were shaking, but then he put his palms on his eyes and I realized he was crying. It was the quietest crying I've ever heard, like a whisper. I was going to go over to him, but then I thought maybe he was whisper crying because he didn't want me or anyone else to hear him. So I walked out and went to Via's room, and I saw Mom lying next to Via on the bed, and Mom was whispering to Via, who was crying. So I went to my bed and put on my pajamas without anyone telling me to, and put the nightlight on and turned the light off and crawled into the little mountain of stuffed animals I had left on my bed earlier. It felt like all of that had happened 1,000,000 years ago. I took my hearing aids off and put them on the night table and pulled the covers up to my ears and imagined Daisy snuggling with me, her big wet tongue licking my face all over like it was her favorite face in the world. And that's how I fell asleep. This is a good one, you guys.
It have a squiggly line underneath number 2. And then today's, let's see, and then you need the new title, so write this a little bit bigger. I'm not waiting. So if you have to do this tonight for homework, you will, which I think is what's going to happen, because you missed most of the story. So, a little bit bigger. You need to write the title, Wonder, Part 6, chapters 5 through 8, and then today's date, November 30th, 2020. And then we're starting with number 3. Yes, Victoria. It should say part 6. That just means you did not write the correct part. Because we're in part 6. Justin was part 5. So, our first word is the word taciturn. Taciturn. T-A-C-I-T-U-R-N. Taciturn. Not taciturn, but taciturn. That's a soft C sound. T-A-C-I-T-U-R-N. Taciturn. Taciturn is an adjective, so it's a describing word. Remember, adjectives describe nouns. Adverbs describe verbs. This is an adjective, so it means it would be describing a noun as taciturn, usually a person. A person would be described as taciturn. Not a place, not a thing or idea, maybe an animal, but it would mostly be a person that would be described as taciturn. And it means typically silent and uncommunicative. Remember, communicate means you talk. So if you are uncommunicative, it means you don't really talk to people. You are silent and people talk to you, you don't really talk back. That's what uncommunicative means. Because communicate means you're talking to other people. That's how you talk back and forth when you communicate. Communicative means you do talk and listen and engage with other people. The prefix un makes the word that comes after the opposite. So if communicative means you do talk to people and you listen and you engage with them, uncommunicative means you do not. Please make sure that you're focusing and paying attention. Some synonyms for taciturn are aloof and cold. Now, cold doesn't mean cold. It just means if you describe a person as cold, it means they don't really talk. They seem kind of mean. Maybe you get a vibe from them that they don't want to talk to you, they don't want to hang out with you, they want nothing to do with you. So if a person is taciturn, it also means they are aloof and cold. Those words mean they don't really talk. They don't really communicate, they don't really engage. They just want to be left alone. So if a person is taciturn, they are silent and uncommunicative because they don't really want to talk to anybody. Here it is in context. But what is with you lately, Via? You're moody and taciturn and secretive. So remember, Mom and Via were arguing. They were arguing about the play and how Via hadn't invited her. And Via was just really upset and angry. And so Via's mom said she was taciturn, which means she's not really talking to them. She probably goes home, goes into her bedroom, and closes the door. She's not really communicating or hanging out with her family. She's like See you later. I don't want to hang out with you. Number 4 is the word whimpering. Whimpering. W-H-I-M-P-E-R-I-N-G. Whimpering. W-H-I-M-P-E-R-I-N-G. Whimpering. We've heard that word a lot, kind of all in a row. Whimpering is a verb, so it's an action, it's something that is done. And it means to cry in weak, broken sounds. So broken means it's not just all one long cry. It's like these little cries, and they're very weak and quiet. Bless you. It also means quiet moaning. Not loud moaning, but quiet, kind of high-pitched moaning. So whimpering, W-H-I-M-P-E-R-I-N-G, is a verb, it's an action, and it means to cry in weak, broken sounds or quiet moaning. Here's the word in context. She just started whimpering all of a sudden, said Via, kneeling down next to Mom. So that's when Daisy got really, she's been sick. We've kind of seen that foreshadowing. There's been a few times, especially in a few parts back, where Via says that Daisy keeps throwing up. And August says that Daisy has thrown up. So there's been some foreshadowing, which remember means the author is trying to tell you something is coming without actually saying the words, this is what's going to happen. So that's when Daisy got really, really sick, and it was the end. Okay, any questions about how to spell any of these words? Especially those of you who have cards, because remember, they are right here. That means they need to be spelled exactly the same. The words all need to be the same. If you give me a card that does not have it exactly as it appears up here, I will be giving it back to you. There are no capital letters anywhere except for the title, which I forgot to underline. So that means there should be no capital letters anywhere except for this W in wonder, P in part, and C in chapter. Nothing else should be capitalized. Right now, I need everybody to make sure that you have matched each and every letter, word, space, and punctuation mark. Once you are sure that your vocab notebook matches this exactly, you may put it away. Get out your Wonder Journal. Label the first clean page, Wonder Part 6, Chapter 5 through 8, November 30th, 2020. Please make sure you have the date. So many people have been turning it in without the date. I'm going to start counting 5 points off for no date. That makes it really hard for me to grade because I grade it based on the date. So if you don't have the date, it's really hard and I have to figure it out. So if you forget the date, I'm going to start taking 5 points off each time. So get out your Wonder Journal. Write Wonder, Part 6, Chapters 5 through 8, and today's date at the top. Then close your journal. Leave your pencil there as a bookmark. Then close it, and we'll talk about the questions. You're only writing about why Via and her mom argue at the beginning of this part we read today. And what does August overhear? August overhears something. What is it? Number 2, why does August accuse his mom and Via of lying? It does not say what does he accuse them of lying about. He says why does he accuse his mom and Via of lying. Remember, accuse means saying you did this, even if you don't necessarily have all the facts. So why does August accuse his mom and Via of lying? Do not answer the question, what does August accuse his mom and Via of lying about? unless you also answer, why does August accuse his mom and Via of lying? So why is he saying that they are lying? Number 3, what does Via tell August when she finally comes to his room? So after this argument, August's in his room. What does Via come and tell August? Number 4, what is the mood of the chapter Goodbye? Justify your answer with text evidence. So the question, what is the mood of the chapter Goodbye? Remember, mood is how you feel. That chapter Goodbye, how does it feel? What is the emotion that you feel as you read it? What is the emotion the characters are feeling? Then use text evidence to say, this is how I felt reading it, here's why. Use text evidence. Remember, if the question says justify your answer with text evidence or use text evidence, that means that is part of your answer. Number 5, what does August learn about Daisy? What do you think this shows about August? So he learned something new that he had not realized before about Daisy. What was that, and what does it show you about August? The fact that he's just now learning whatever this thing is, what does that show you about August? That he's just now learning it. Number 6, summarize what happens after August's parents come home without Daisy. So that means in your own words, what happens after August's parents come home without Daisy? That whole part, what happens from right after they come home until the end of this part? Summarize that whole thing. Does everybody understand? Any questions about the questions? Now, I graded a lot of journals the past few days. I noticed that some of you are basically copying directly from the book from some questions. That is not okay. I know what the book says. I want to know what you say. So if your whole answer is basically copied directly from the book, almost word for word, even if it's not exactly the same, you're going to get counted wrong. I cannot say this. I'm getting so frustrated having to say this every single time. 2 or more sentences. Some of you are still only telling me one sentence, or you're giving me one sentence and then the rest are sentence fragments. 2 or more complete sentences. Does 2 complete sentences answer every question? No. Some of them you have to write more. Watch out for your run-ons. Watch out for your fragments. Watch out for your commas. Remember, if you have an independent clause and a dependent clause, if the dependent clause comes first, that means you need a comma. Dependent clauses have a subject and a predicate, but they can't stand alone as a sentence because they have that connecting word, because or when or since at the beginning. So if your sentence begins with the word because, when, if, since, whatever, you're going to need a comma before you go to the next clause. If you have and, but, or so, you need a comma, the word before it. Do not start a sentence with and, but, or so. Does everybody understand? Use correct grammar because you had plenty of time to look at your graded journals. Girls at home, you do not have them yet, but I am about to send them, so you'll have them this afternoon to look at. Everybody at school, you had lots of time to look at your journals this morning, and I told you make sure you do this because otherwise if you keep making the same mistakes, the points you lose are higher. Grammar mistakes are now -1 point each time. Characters' names spelled incorrectly are now -2 points each time because you have characters' names right in front of you. Not answering part of the question used to be -5 points, now it's -10 points. Answering a whole question incorrectly used to be -10, now it's -15. Not answering a question at all when you had time to answer it is -20 points instead of -15. Does everybody understand? Use your time wisely. Do not sit there and dawdle. Some of you, I see little drawings or little underlines or little marks all over the place and no answers. You're getting 50s for those. 50s are Fs. Too many of those and there's no fixing it. Do not keep making the same mistakes over and over and over again, especially when I'm telling you exactly how to not make those mistakes, but you're ignoring it. Any questions about the questions? Okay. When I say go, you will have 15 15 minutes to answer these questions. You will have all 15, and then you will have your 2 minutes after. Make sure that you are using your whole time to answer all these questions. Some of you are still only answering 2 when I really think you could be answering more than 2. Some of you are only answering 1 when I think you should be answering 2 at this point. Do not write and write and write and write and write to make your answer long, because I can tell. I can tell when you're just writing word after word after word just to make it long. If you write a lot that has nothing to do with the question, I'm just going to count it wrong. Does everybody understand? So even if your answer is long, if most of it has nothing to do with the question being asked, I'm going to count it wrong. Even if some of it does. Okay, you have 15 minutes. Go. Remember, you don't have to write them in order. Please write the number. The number, write the whole question, skip one line, write the answer.